I'm in now.
Patience, Bill. Call the meeting to order. Our first item is our pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Vice Chair, could you read our mission statement?
Marshall Public Schools develops the potential of each learner for success in a changing world.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Any additions? Hearing none, please vote. It is approved. Tiger Spotlight.
Do you want to read that or do you want me to, Jeff?
Yeah. Be happy to.
I appreciate that. So we've all had the fortune of working with these three young folks for the last year, and Kevin, Sammy, and Laith, I think, have done an awesome job being student school board members, and have given some good insight and contributed and been responsible, and I know I've greatly appreciated getting to know all three of them. So this is really our opportunity, I think, or the school board's opportunity to recognize the three of you and for your commitment and just the information and everything that you've shared, and to say thank you and certainly best of luck as you go on to the next phase of your life. You've all done well, and we're proud that you're part of our school board. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tricia, do you have the certificates for these three?
Gotta hurry, the ice cream's melting.
Get this
Thank
one,
you.
Tricia.
Thank you.
Oh, I like that one.
Nice job.
Front page worthy.
Sammy, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you
The
so
world's
much.
yours. Go get it, okay? And I'm gonna look for you to protect us now, okay?
All right, scooch in, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
And we also have the opportunity to recognize some of our high school students who, as part of Business Professionals of America, advanced to nationals. I think we have 4, hopefully, here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And Miss Kellen, the advisor. So we'd like to recognize Ashton Eben, who participated in the graphic design competition at nationals, and Daniel Van Koolen, who participated in computer animation on that team at nationals. Ignacio Larios. Thank you. I want to get that right. Personal financial management at the national competition, and Laith Shaheen, who was an Ambassador Torch Award recipient and also participated in Java programming. So all of these individuals advanced to the nationals and certainly had success. Ms. Kellen, would you want to detail anything or share anything about them or the experience in general?
Just that they had to work really hard to get there. So a lot of time got put into their success. For instance, Nacho, we call him Nacho.
That would have been easier.
For instance, Nacho took our personal finance book that we used to teach 2 different classes and just on his own time read the whole book. And that's how he prepared for his contest. And I know Ashton spent a lot of time putting together her design, getting lots of feedback, not just from teachers at the school, but also from graphic designers in town who do that for a living. And the computer animation team, again, it was a team effort of 3 of them, and took I don't know, I sent Mr. Munson a link to their animation team, and it's pretty impressive, and it took lots and lots of hours to do that. And of course, Labe had lots of computer programming classes at school, as well as a lot of practicing on his own time. And then, Labe, can I tell him a little bit about the Ambassador Award?
Oh, yeah.
About that?
So the Ambassador Torch Award, because BPA has a thing called the Torch Award program, and it has like 9 different categories, and like they're like service, knowledge, and patriotism and stuff like that. Like there's just different things with different like volunteering at something can get you points in service, and you have to get a certain amount of points in each category to receive the award at a certain level. Like at the local level, you have to get 25 points in a category. At the regional level, you have to get 30 or the 50.
It's 30 region, 50
Yeah,
state.
30 for region, 50 for the state, and then like 70 for the national level. And then each one you get like a medal or like a torch or something like that. So it's pretty cool to get that recognition.
It's like getting an Eagle Scout award or
Yeah.
Boy Scouts. It's a pretty big deal.
Absolutely.
And we had 4 students from Marshall that got that award.
Yep.
So yeah, congratulations to all 4 of you and those who weren't able to make it today. And Mr. Chapman has certificates for you. Come on up front and we'll get a picture.
Okay. This one's Ashton. Daniel. Taco. What am I? Nacho.
Pounded
They're all smiling anyway.
This one's in the paper now. I'm proud of all you guys. You guys make me feel good.
Thank you.
Before we leave, I just want to thank the board and all the administration for being so supportive of the BPA students and the BPA program. I really see kids grow and mature and become really successful, because I've been doing it for a long time now. So anyway, thanks.
Brenda, how many kids how many kids are in BPA this year?
Oh, my brain's about dead now.
Ballpark.
And we had, last year we had 63, I think, and this year we had about a dozen less maybe. So we were around 52, 54, I don't know, something like that.
We
So
had
that-
I think we had like 50 something at state too. Like we're the 3rd or 4th biggest chapter in the state right now. So
This is a lot for the program.
yeah.
Thank you for your leadership with that, Brenda.
Yep, well, the kids do all the recruiting for me now. So I sit back and let them do the work. They're awesome.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks.
You guys can go if you want. So.
Thank you.
release.
Yeah, I got that.
Jeff.
I don't know.
Yeah, really?
Nacho, taco, whatever. You know, no one said your board chair is that smart. So. Public forum, now's the time that public can approach the board. Does anybody like to bring anything up? Moving on to our presentations. Student survey presentation. Be sure you talk into the microphone so we can record you on our tapes.
All right.
It's been a long day. Hard to believe, but.
It's only Monday.
It's Monday. All right, we're here to share about the student surveys. Tricia, this isn't doing anything.
I saw Scott
There we
playing
go.
it when we were taking pictures.
All right, so each spring we give the students a survey, just looking at constituent satisfaction. How are we doing? What feedback are they giving us? We have a set of questions that we ask, and then we look at the data each year. So we each picked some of the questions that had the highest percentages, and then some of them that had the most room for improvement. We're going to share with you this afternoon. At Westside, the strengths that the kids said you can see up on the board, we were very happy with the results that we got. It's pretty typical from one year to the next what we see. Basically what we saw the kids saying this year is they feel like they're doing their best, they feel like they're cared for, they have friends at school, and they feel safe at school, which are some of the things that we consider most important. Things that they gave as far as areas of improvement are some of the lowest scores we had. One that surprised us when we went through it was the students at my school treat with respect. You know, the students tend to say, I have a lot of friends and I feel like I'm really cared for, but then that one was low. That's when we want to look at next year and why did they say that? Where are they coming from with that? My guess is they feel like, well, maybe I feel like I'm really good, but someone's always picking on Matt or something like that. So maybe there's something like that. So we want to dig into that a little bit next year at Westside. They also said with treated fairly, everyone getting along, and then the last one with the being challenged. You know, work in school makes me think that was at 90%. That was one of our lower ones. We want to dig into that a little more next year as we consider our next steps. So our next steps would be just our PBIS team, our leadership team will look at that and say how can we improve some of those areas. Working with some of the kids, and in our SCIP plan we'll work on some of that data.
Okay, so at Parkside we had very similar results to what Westside had. So these are the 5 questions, and these surveys were designed during the original process of the strategic planning, and so they're the surveys that we've given for quite some time. And so we have been using this to some degree, but as you can see, they're all fairly high percentages, so it's kind of hard to really get a lot of data that's usable there as far as what next. So we really have relied on Parkside for our PBIS data. So we do a tiered fidelity inventory each year, and last year was our first year of that, and now we're continuing with that, and that encompasses not just students but staff and parents as well, so that we can get a better idea of what direction we need to go, because it's kind of hard to look at 91, 98% and really get a lot of information that's useful. So our next steps are to use this data, but then also continue to use our tiered fidelity inventory regarding PBIS and continue with our implementation of that. Next year, we're also going to be implementing zones of regulation, and then a complementary piece to that is called Mind Up. And so zones of regulation is just teaching students to be cognizant of what they're thinking and feeling, and then how to get to the right zone where they can be productive and successful. And then Mind Up has, again, just some lessons and different things that go with that. And then our social emotional learning counselor teacher that was new this year that we were awarded a grant for. That has been an excellent addition to Parkside. She spent half of her time in the classroom teaching these zones of regulation. And then she also spent the other half of her time, so she might have went out onto the playground and helped with what does that look like on the playground, or into the lunchroom, or just a small friendship group. We had a lot of bus success groups, and those went really well this year. We saw a lot of improvements in regards to our bus behavior, so that was really helpful as well. So that's kind of where we're going with our survey data for students.
At the high school, highlight a few of the strengths, and these are in from highest score moving down. Our surveys are a little bit different than what would be at the primary level. Over the years, we've added some additional questions. You'll see probably more of a focus with regards to technology. And then some of the information that we looked at this year also dealt with things like 1 hour lunch, AIT. We've talked about some of the reassessment concepts, and then just ask the students to kind of identify themselves in terms of their GPA, so we could try to dig into the data a little bit more and see if we could see some trends. With our student survey, it also is one of the 4 primary components on our school improvement plan. And so we identified at the beginning of the year 3 areas. 1, interpersonal connectedness, physical and emotional safety, and then academic engagement that we've asked our students, and we looked at our site leadership team identified a variety of questions that we felt like really hit into those areas. And then we took a 3-year average, and we looked at how we did this year and use that as one of the measurement pieces for our school improvement plan. And so what you'll see here simply would be our strengths, those highest scoring categories, and then those opportunities for improvement would be those lowest scoring areas. So you'll see my teachers are using our laptops enough. This one I like to see, I feel connected to at least one adult or staff member in our school, and teachers encourage me to do quality work on all my assignments. I'm challenged to do my best. And then we see some information about extracurricular activities, which we know are important to our students. And then lastly, that this school is preparing me for that next grade level or that next step. And those were our strengths. Our opportunities for improvement, school rules, technology, which is kind of interesting because it was just mentioned previously as one of the strengths. I feel like I belong at this school, which again was interesting when one of the strengths was I feel connected to one adult at this school. I'm treated with respect by other students. I should say these are also out of a 5-point Likert scale of strongly agree, agree, neutral, disagree, and strongly disagree, both for the whole survey, and it has been since the beginning of time. My classrooms have enough space for us. What you won't see today is, and that we took our staff through this morning, we looked at some of those that were the largest gainers compared to the last 3 years. Which questions did we see the biggest increase in this year? So it might not have been listed as a strength or a weakness, but the biggest gainers, and then which were the biggest areas where we went the wrong direction. And this year, my classrooms have enough space for us gained considerably over the last 3-year average. And we kind of chuckle at that because obviously the classrooms haven't gotten any bigger, but this year they thought they were, but it's still one of those lower scoring areas for us. And then again, comes back to technology, and is the technology helping me become more engaged as a learner? And I feel welcome when entering the school. So what we do with it, we'll use a Plan, Do, Study, Act continuous improvement cycle. Our site leadership team will take these results. We looked at them today as a large group. We'll review them again in the fall. I would suspect that they'll become some components of our school improvement plan next year that we'll try to incorporate and try to do a better job with.
Middle school is based on pretty much the same or very similar survey information that the high school does, and on the same Likert scale of the 1 to 5, 1 being low and 1 being high. Strongly agree with, is it the opposite? Let's see if we can get this. Okay, 1 being low, they strongly disagree, 2 disagree, 3 neutral, 4 agree, and 5 strongly agree. So we also took the top 8 or most positive areas on our survey results, and there's quite a span as far as information goes here. I would suggest that middle school results are pretty similar year after year. We've got a little bit of movement, but for the most part, it's pretty similar. We always ask teachers not to bribe kids before they go in and do the survey so that we get some real, authentic information. And we made sure that didn't happen this year, and it's pretty consistent. So teachers encouraged me to do quality work on all assignments was our highest. Challenge to do my best work, what to do in case of an emergency. We run through that information. As all of you know, we have a number of drills throughout every building district-wide. Kids seem to be fairly comfortable in what they need to do and how those things happen. Treated with respect by the principal, and this was not a setup, and assistant principal at a 4.29. Feel connected to at least one adult or staff member in my school. This is a really important one to our schools, and the middle school had it as one of our goals last year, and it was not a goal of ours this year. So we were concerned about what was going to happen with that piece, but it remained pretty consistent. So we were relieved to see that. My teachers use our devices enough in classes and treated with respect by teachers and staff, both comparable, feel safe at Marshall Public Schools. We struggle to know, and I need to identify that in the survey better, probably that last statement there, whether or not that's a safety factor within the building walls or if that's a safety factor in anti-bully kind of scenarios. So some of those things, and we don't know what that means to each child unless we ask it specifically. Opportunities for growth, our bottom 4 were these. I am treated with respect by other students. Kind of replicated with what Darcy and Brian both said, that we see both ends. But I also have to say a 3.73 out of a 5 isn't bad. Any of those areas, just we took the 4 lowest. I think the school rules are fair, 3.80, and utilizing technology right in the same vicinity and comfortable talking to the teachers in my school, 3.91. So next steps at Marshall Middle is pretty similar also. We certainly go to SLT and then our Tiger Traits, which is our PBIS as far as next steps. We take a look at the data. We determine what is most essential with goals next year and how we're going to address that either through some of the PBIS behavioral end of things, or if it's more academic in nature, and then it spirals down through SLT. So I did want to share, I read through all of the quotes. The kids get the opportunity to write comments throughout their surveys. This was truly it. I took it word for word if there's misspellings or capitalizations that aren't there. But this was like a heart warmer and a half. I had to share it somewhere. I was really scared going into 5th grade. And as most of you know, many parents, especially their first child, putting them in 5th grade in this building, it looks pretty intimidating. But this little guy, I think, just really nailed it. Then I started to realize that being in middle school is like being in a school that made your wishes come true. I always thought middle school was going to be uneasy and I was going to be late most of the time, but turns out I was wrong. Middle school was like having a family. Isn't that sweet? Anyway, we do a lot with regard to our transitions this year. Jeremy and I worked really hard to make sure that the current 4th graders coming into 5th grade got a more authentic experience. And so we had all 4th graders come in for a morning. We took 2 sections at a time, and they took an entire morning. And then their ambassadors or their mentors were the 5th graders in class. So they got to experience through a lunchroom time this year. So I think it really helped them feel better about coming into this big, bad, scary place. So anyway. That's all I've got.
Thank you. And so I did like my other team members. We put the top 7 high-scoring items on, and then for our areas for growth, the bottom 7. And so for us, teachers encourage me to do quality work on all of my assignments. I am challenged to do my best at school. The school is preparing me for the next grade, for high school, or for my plans after I graduate. I am treated with respect by teachers and staff. I feel connected to at least one adult or staff member in my school. So other than the focus on the academics and what they're going to do beyond us, that's a really important one for us. We've done a connectedness survey for the last 3 years, and we know the biggest difference for students and their success is how they feel at school. It's the teacher in the classroom. It's the people they connect with. And the engagement they have with what they're learning. And so that was important, that was one of our top items. I feel welcome when entering the school. I feel successful at school. So those are all great ones to have as our top items. Our opportunities for improvement, I think the school rules are fair. So not surprisingly, that one's up there. My teachers use our devices, laptops enough in my classes. I am satisfied with the amount of technology used in the classroom. And I'm going to go back to that second point. We still struggle with, does that mean that they think we use them too much or not enough in that sense? And so we need to clarify that a little bit. Being an old fogey, I think it's too much. They, of course, sometimes think it's not enough. Utilizing technology in my device in classes has helped me become more interested in learning. It's interesting that's showing up in almost every building. My school is clean and well maintained. They rank that as one of their lowest, which is kind of funny because our building, we have a new custodian, N.J. Rogie. I mean, that place looks almost as clean as when we started the school year. He does a fabulous job maintaining it. So for us, we would have given it 105%. The technology I have access to at school, including my device, is reliable. I am treated with respect by other students. And so of our low ones, that was the highest. And that one matters to us because we, as you know, we had a rough start right after the election and all of the nasty behavior that was promoted during this election. And so we've come a long way, and we feel like our students have recovered from that. All of them that were involved in that fight have gone through the court system and faced their consequences, and things have calmed down, and people are getting along, and we're back to calling each other a dysfunctional family. So. And then our next steps at Maytech. Our site leadership team is meeting throughout the summer, so we're looking at the data from that survey. Plus, we have other surveys like the Connectedness Survey, which we've done for 3 years. The Signs of Suicide Survey, where we look at the rates of depression, the thoughts of depression, and thoughts of suicide. And then the DAS survey talks about drug and alcohol use. So we're going to take all of those into account as we look at what we're going to do next. One of the challenges that we face in our building is many students who are 18 and older and have no legal obligation to come to school. And so we're going to be working on implementing Check and Connect, which is something to help engage students in their own learning and hopefully increase their attendance and their success at school.
What is Check and Connect?
It's a program through the University of Minnesota where they focus on each student checks in with somebody and the teachers check in with students. So through our Connectedness survey, we looked at who the students connected with and who the teachers thought they connected with. So each teacher next year is going to have 5 to 6 students that it's going to be their role
Responsibility for a
to
specific
connect with that student on an individual basis, not an obligation in a classroom setting, just to connect with that kid, but also to connect with the family and keep an eye on their grades and their attendance and talk to that kid about that, talk to them just informally, connecting with them so that they know there's another person keeping an eye on how they're doing. And then we're going to track that data of the work that we do as staff to connect with those kids and see if it makes a difference for us with the attendance.
I think you'll see some good success with that.
We're hoping so. We've tried so many things. We've been communicating with area schools, area alternative schools, and they're all facing the same issue with attendance. And we've all tried many different things without success, so we're hoping this is something that works for us. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I think it's good to see the teams that are working on this. It might look a little different in each building, whether it's a Tiger Trait or PBIS site leadership team. But the fact they're looking at it and figuring out how to learn from it. It's not just that we give these surveys and then the results go on a shelf. That's something that's incorporated into continuous improvement. So kudos to all of the building administrators. Nice job. Thank you.
Board forum, now it's time for the board to bring up anything.
Commencement went really well, I thought. Very smooth. Very nice.
Very nice, yes.
I like the hug you got too, Brian. That was classy.
That was a lift, wasn't it?
That was a lift.
I think he's going to file a workers' comp claim later this week. But
Did you put your
asking you about that on stage.
Did you put your puzzle together?
I know not yet.
Oh.
We did not know what the ruckus was. Our backs were to
Yeah,
you,
we missed
so
it.
we had to wait and watch it on TV. So moving on to our legislative update.
So as you know, the legislative session is wrapped up, and today Bruce and I had an opportunity to listen to staff from the Minnesota Department of Education share a little bit more about what we've been hearing about, and we started to get pieces of some of the details. And what I put together for you, the first sheet is sort of I think they call it a 1-minute summary from the Minnesota Rural Education Association, where they take out, I guess, the main concepts in different areas of the session: funding, taxes, teacher recruitment and retention, early learning, concurrent enrollment, broadband, and elections. The second page actually is I would say, contains a little bit more of the details. There's some overlap, I realize, as well, but we learned more today about the School Readiness Plus program, specifically that there will be, with the additional approximately $50 million in funding, there will be another 3,000 early childhood or preschool students who will have access to these dollars statewide. It'll bring it to a total of 6,160 out of the 3,000 new, I'm going to call them slots, if you will. 1,182 of those will be for non-metro district students, and that's all allocated according to a formula that the Department of Education has. And I won't go through and read all of these, but I thought some of the details might be worth sharing. Also, the Southwest West Central Service Cooperative, included in the legislative outcome or legislative session outcome, they will be involved in almost a $5 million mental health grant for providing mental health services in the schools that are member districts. And they also received a $3 million career and technical education grant to do some things to grow that, which is very, very relevant, those careers and that emphasis in our community and in our region. So starting to get some of the funding details if we didn't know what they were before, but we still have some things to learn more about. One of the aspects, I guess, of the early learning or early childhood component is that it's only a 2-year funding increase. It'll go back to the original amount that was approved last legislative session without additional attention in future legislative sessions. So that's something that we sort of need to be aware of. And then a variety of additional changes that we now know more about. I would say more closely related to policy instead of funding. The big one out of there would be the school building bond agricultural credit, or one of the big ones, or the Ag to School credit, as the Minnesota Rural Education Association has mentioned. And I didn't print this for you, but the runs that were provided for us by the Minnesota Rural Education Association show that for next year, our debt service levy for our district would be about $2.9 million. Of that, about $805,000 would be paid by ag property owners, and as a result, they're going to see a credit of $322,000, which is a 40% credit, as was discussed. So that's applicable to existing and future school taxes for facilities and building referendums.
This is not sunsetted?
Nope, there is, from my understanding, and Bruce can jump in if he interprets it differently, but from my understanding, this is an ongoing appropriation into the future. The amount will change, but
Absolutely.
Yes, it's ongoing. And then the third page of this handout is just a breakdown. We received a spreadsheet showing, okay, what's the overall change on a per pupil basis by district. And then they also, the Department of Ed, or in this case, I think it might have been the House Research Committee that had put together a statewide total. And you can see that for our district, the net change per pupil for next school year is 1.7%. And total over 2 years is 3.4%. So it's not 1.7 and then 3.4. It's a total of 3.4% on a per pupil basis increase over the 2-year period. So as we anticipated, we're starting to see the result of the legislative session. There's some challenges that are included that we learned a little bit more about today. But in general, it's good to get the additional details that we didn't have access to, or I didn't at least, until today. So I don't know if anybody has anything they want to add or questions that Bruce can answer for you or anything like that. Yep, TRA was just, it could have been, and TRA needs to be fixed. There's some challenges associated with that.
Have you heard anything more about the game playing between the governor and the legislature as far as lawsuit and calling a special session?
I have not. It's been interesting, as you know, but I have not heard any more. Maybe Dion or Bruce have, or Matt being on the service co-op board, but I have not.
So we're looking at 1.7 for next year. What did you figure out per pupil?
Well, it's 2%, the 2% on the formula. So
1.7 on a per pupil basis, netted out, if you will.
Yeah.
Did you include in the budget did you include 2%?
1.5.
Initially, it was 1.5. So that helped. And
So the e-learning days, would that be for snow days?
Could be, yep. We just got details today, yep.
yeah, that would be for snow days.
Yep. They did approve districts being able to use up to 5 inclement weather e-learning days. There are a variety of, I guess I'd say, requirements associated with that we're going to need to wade through to figure out if that's something that we're going to pursue or not.
And they already brought up, some of the superintendents brought up some challenges that they saw, because you're supposed to give a 2-hour advance notice that you're going to have an e-learning date based on the regular schedule. So that would be, like for us, it would be 6:05 that we would let our populace know that we're going to have an e-learning date, and then giving out cell numbers for the teachers to the students. That was another concern. So I think it was handled pretty diplomatically by the person from the MDE that we're going to have to work through this. So there are going to be some challenges in streamlining that's going to need to take place if a district even opts to go forward with it.
Yeah, you have to make accommodations for students who don't have internet access at home. There has to obviously be a lot of discussion with the teachers and get it figured out. But it's a good option because we've had winters, we've all experienced them, where we've had a number of snow days. And nobody likes making these days up. I don't think the board or I or anybody likes to have to say, oh, by the way, we're going to go to school on June 13th or whatever. I don't like that. It's happened.
Good. Moving on to our budget update.
The budget update, basically, at this point in time, 2 weeks from the budget presentation and at the school board meeting coming up, is good news. And I'm just going to share with you what we had back in the middle of April as far as the general fund projected deficit, and that was at a gross number of about $320,000 deficit at that point in time, around I think it was April 15th or whatever. And we also had a net deficit when you factor in the transportation fund balance transfer, which is a positive, or has been the past number of years, looking at a net deficit of $260,000. And as of today, where we're at with the general fund is looking at a deficit of $160,000. And
With the new monies.
With the new monies, and going from the 1.5% formula increase to 2%, that's certainly one of the factors that is the reason why we're looking at better numbers. And then our net deficit would be at $100,000. But this is certainly subject to change. We have a couple factors that I'm still waiting on as far as information goes, one of them being the MATEC budget, which will come into play with our total general fund budget. And so I'm thinking that there will be some change, probably not a whole lot, but nonetheless the news is better than what we had in April. Certainly it's more refined now than what it was back in April, more precise probably on the expenditure side, on the expenditure line items. They're more in tune with a thorough analysis rather than just a preliminary analysis. So I'm a lot more comfortable where we're at. And also one of the other factors, when the numbers, enrollment numbers that I used when I did the April budget calculation, from what I'm using now, we had a slight increase in enrollment or projected enrollment. It may not sound like 10 students would mean a whole lot, but it does. It does make a difference, and so that was another one of the factors that we had as far as our deficit being at least projected less at this point in time than what it was back in April. Food service budget, we're working on getting that finalized, and the capital outlay budget still have ways to go to get that in its final form. But my intent is by the administrative retreat to have pretty much a fully accomplished and completed budget book, and then obviously definitely by the time the school board meeting comes along here in 2 weeks. So by and large, things are looking better, but we still have a ways to go to get things nailed down as far as what our revenue and expenditure items are going to be in a number of different funds. So I would entertain any questions that you might have at this point.
Hearing none, we'll move on. Thank you. Second reading of policies 414, 415, and 533. Any questions? Hearing none, we'll move on. Moving on to an action item of approval of our food service provider. Motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
It's open for discussion.
I believe, most of the information going through this process was shared with you, and we went by the book as far as the RFP process and getting that set up, having a pre-bid meeting with the interested vendors and setting the timeline as to receiving those proposals back. And once we received those proposals from 3 vendors, Aviance, Taher, and Chartwells, I believe that was on May 18th. We set up a committee of 5 that reviewed the proposals. We had 2 sets of proposals from each of the companies, thoroughly went through those. A lot of information, a lot of good information, a lot of hard work put in by all of the companies that decided to present a proposal to our school district. And then we used the point calculator system to make a judgment. Each of the committee members was allowed to use the point calculator and do their own analysis and come up with their rankings as far as the 3 companies go. And then I tabulated those results from each of the companies and averaged them out. And the recommendation coming forward by our committee is to grant the food service operation management company Tower Incorporated for starting with the 17-18 school year. And one of the things in the legislation, and we're not quite clear on that yet, but I do believe that probably we'll be able to extend the contract out, the district will, if it in fact desires to do that, for 2 more years besides the 2 years that we can do it now. So right now, that contract, it runs for 3 years, and then we got to go through the process again. And I think with the new legislation, it might be up to 5 years before we would have to go through that process again. And it is, I would say, arduous. It's time-consuming. Certainly, it's for the vendors. That's their business, and they need to do it, and they need to put the proposal together. But for the school district, it's time-consuming as well, and it's something that, frankly, maybe the people that are on the committee don't spend very much time on, and to try to learn all the facets of what those proposals means is significant. So I want to thank the people that did participate on our committee, and I think we had a good process that was full of integrity, and I'm comfortable with the recommendation.
I think it's great to have Mark back and Tahir. We've had great experience with Tahir over the years. I speak as a principal and just the personal being out in the schools, and Lori, just really great service and responsive to concerns we've had over the years. And I'm pleased that they're able to stay with us.
I'll second that. We'll call for a vote. It's approved. Anything else for the good of the cause? Again, thank you guys for helping us out.
Thank you.
Your opinions are always very valuable.
They talked about maybe coming back some next year.
Maybe for the budget session.
Oh, yeah.
No, truth and taxation, I'd say.
Meeting's over.